100%. I want to hear more what you learn about that, Sam, because I'm now listening to lectures given by Stephen Kotkin, who seems to be the foremost authority on Stalin and on the Soviet Union. He's quite a brilliant scholar and writer. And this really comes into focus once we understand the all-encompassing, impenetrable, authoritarian and totalitarian ideology of the Soviets. By the way, I was with a bunch of journalists a couple nights ago who had covered Palestinians in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria, and the censorship on the part of the Hamas is absolute. You're not permitted to show the war crimes that they're committing if you're working for, say, the AP, Associated Press. You're only permitted to show Israel's response to the Hamas war crimes, and nor are you allowed to even say in your AP article that this this report has been censored by Hamas. And the reason why is because
I don't think you're bringing an excellent point up, Ron. It's the expectation of privacy.
Pictures of people who get permits for you,
protesters being walked into the Capitol,
arrange interviews and so forth for you. And so Hamas will harm your fixers, tenders, cameramen, etc. If you don't conform to their censorship. So again, much like the Soviet Union, which you remember didn't allow people to leave, Hamas didn't allow people to leave, didn't allow free Hamas does the same thing. We now can get a picture of this is why, this is a turning point in world history. That we're no longer going to allow sort of violent, totalitarian criminals on our border. Take them at their word when they say they want to kill us. Humor and comedy. I say this as a Jewish liberal from New York.
I hate to break the bad news to a lot of people, but, life is war. And that is a hard thing to really wrap your head around because you want the world to be at peace. However, it does seem that the status quo is war. So I think there's two optimal, situations. One is you prepare for war, but you live in peace. So the point is, this is, October 7th supernova at Gaza. They did it to themselves. And if you watch the videos of the leaders of that radical terrorist movement holding up babies with AK-47 screaming into mics, non-stop murder, death, mayhem to Israel and the Jews, it's so sick that unfortunately, they did it to themselves. It'd be great if somehow there was some type of de-escalation. But if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. And unfortunately, you fuck around, you find out, and they found out the hard way.
Yeah. I mean, the October 7th, the tragedy of our losses, resulted in an entirely new world order, really. Namely that Israel emerges, at least in the Middle East, as a regional superpower. We exposed Iran as a paper tiger. We videos, and they are, from a journalistic point of view, they're just a bad joke. I would go so far as to say you can't show me one single IDF soldier who has sniped a Palestinian child. Now, that said, if that child is carrying a weapon, or if that child is in an area or a building, a school, a hospital, a refugee camp that is openly being used by Hamas as a military asset, that's a different story. Because
like him a lot. You all like him. Everyone knows President Macron of France, who's been with me from the beginning. One of the first people I met is a foreign dignitary, and I liked him from day one.
suicide. And Hamas has also been cited for using child soldiers. So when they try to pull on our heartstrings for the deaths of their children, so I present you, I guess Aaron, you're still there with this side. I don't know if you're the Aaron that I know. Aaron said, I saw a photo of an evil house fighting with baby strapped. So very, I guess you're being out of 100%. Because truth is even more powerful than violence. And again, I'm a person who has spent my professional life telling the truth. And if I can do not only do I get journalistic organization that's truly honest. So I'll be careful with what I say. I'm very careful with the facts. Like with you, almost like
El Norma, I'm wondering if we could maybe read a page from the Tanya book.
good idea. Let me grab mine. By the way, I'm sending you the bill for that book because I bought it on your recommendation. But actually, I should just send you the money instead of the bill because the book is worth its weight in gold. So, hang on one second. I have it in my hand. It's now, I keep it in a place where I can easily find it. Hang on. You may be the first one to know.
Tell him she's lying.
So, what another thing you haven't suggested
Did you say something?
okay, where would that be?
Do it.
Like a glass of water.
I don't know, you could read number 10, number 7, number 21. I don't know.
Let's take a look at 10. The purpose of transformation. To the completely righteous one can say, eradicate the evil from your midst, for they know only good, and employ the pleasures of the world solely in service to God. Such people are called those who ascend, for they lift up even evil to its source in the good. But do not imagine you are such as they. As Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, I have seen the ascending ones, and they are rare. Even Rabbi Chaya, who thought the way of ascent was warned, hang on, continued on page 37. Only those who can realize darkness is light, and bitter as sweet may enter here. The purpose of this transformation is the unification of the transcendent with the immanent, even in the lowest of worlds. I think what they're saying here is don't mess with trying to transform evil into good unless you're a tzaddik, unless you're a holy person. Just focus on doing good until you get there. That's my takeaway from this.
Do you want to read the sub notes or the commentary?
Okay. Okay, so the first note is, only those who know the unity of opposites in God can achieve this awakening. The next note is, God is both the transcendent one and the immanent many. Immanent meaning dwelling within. For those, I'm saying immanent, and I don't mean immanent, it's not the hominum coming soon, but immanent meaning residing within. The transcendent is called the Holy One, and is said to be the masculine side of God. The immanent is called Shekhinah, the presence of God, and is said to be the feminine side of God. Beautiful. The realization of God's non-duality, Shlemut, is called Da'at Devakut, the awareness of the unity of God, man, woman, and nature. Complete tzaddikim are those b'nei aliyah, those who have arisen. You heard it, if you were listening, you heard me mention that a moment ago. Who know that there is no darkness without light, or bitterness without sweetness, and who thus see all opposites as manifestations of God. This is Da'at Devukut, the realization that the Holy One and the Shekhinah are one. The complete tzaddik knows this innately, and the in-betweener has to attain it through disciplined practice. So this is very Tanya-ish, because it acknowledges that most of us are in-betweeners, as they say. Most of us are people somewhere along the road trying to make ourselves better. This is incredibly helpful, John. You're like changing my day just with this little bit. I salute you. And I'm going to put one of my little French um, railroad tickets that I saved from my travels recently to mark that page in the book. That's beautiful. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I think if you want to counteract the negative neurolinguistic programming of this app that people condition themselves on, you got to read words of Tanya and Toibra. Because that's the higher intelligence. So, that Benai, is it Benai Israel or Benai? Anyways, it's if you read the Benai Israel, read that first part of the commentary because there's 2 pages of commentary on that.
Well, why don't you read it? I'm looking at the chat now, and well, you can read that if you want. Aaron says it's an Orwellian fantasy. I don't get to your fantasy part of it. This is literally what's happening in the world. I just reported facts. Why did Jacob become blessed with the name Israel? Well, it's when he won in his wrestling with God, and he was obviously a Navi, a prophet. Somebody says Anne Frank used a ballpoint pen. Anne Frank did not use a ballpoint pen. She used a fountain pen, as far as I know. The Gentile uprising is now. I don't see any Gentile uprising. What I see is the United States opposing China. Then I see a bunch of Nazi stuff, which I'll just take a moment and report as hate speech against race or ethnicity, advocating Nazi genocide of Jews. Thank you for playing.
So I'm wondering if I can make this a super safe space for Jews and play the Shema.
Why not?
Constant reminders of your moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis can make it hard to be there when it matters.
שמע ישראל אלוהינו אדוני אחד Sorry, that song's called Poppy Rosen.
Cute.
But that is the Selichot, which is the Sephardic Persian Shema.
Can you play another? Bro, I'm cutting the line right now on my tractor, and you were playing that. I felt so amazing. I don't know if anybody else minds. Can you play another Sephardic prayer, maybe like a minute or two, if that's okay with everybody?
Yeah, I can play that again.
Closer, move the mic closer.
Absolutely, it's non-negotiable. It must happen.
Let me play this song, Poppy Rosen. Let me take a break from the intense Shema. Okay, let me go back to the playlist.
That's important.
Yeah, that Shema is very powerful. Most people have never heard that Shema. When I first came across it, I was like blown away at how amazing that Shema version is. I can play that same one again. You want to do that?
Play whatever BB is asking for. He's mowing the lawn. Play something cool and Sephardic.
Okay, I'll just run it back. Here we go.
So we're going to a property in Bellwood, and we're trying to figure out whether it makes sense to wholesale.
حبيب بأسل حوت قالنا تشيت علينا حتات حتى نتصرين وسلاح لانو يتصرين شمع إسرائيل أدوناي إلهينو أدوناي إحد شمع أدوناي هو האלוהים אדוני הוא האלוהים אדוני הוא האלוהים אדוני הוא האלוהים
So that's the sound of the shofar waking us up.
Yeah,
Are
exactly.
you playing it again?
Yeah, you want to hear it one more time?
I have another thing to play, which I think is good.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Contributed by ECK in the chat. But that shofar is very inspiring, obviously. It's what we play as we're going into battle, or before we go into battle. And it's what we play on, or blow on Yom Kippur and on Rosh Hashanah to wake us up and to repent. And here, I'm going to play something that ECK in the chat turned us on to, so I have to change my audio settings. Let's see.
Yeah, it'd be above a normal height, and it'll have a setting that's Jewish.
Say again.
It'll be above like normal height, and then there'll be a setting that says Jewish.
You're very funny. I know. It's music. I know. Music mode. But this is a cool Sephardic thing. By the way, I'm going to make a confession that when I was at the Kotel just recently on Shabbat and davening the coolest the most musical and the most impassioned and flavorful service was the Sephardic service. So I was inexorably and helplessly drawn to the Sephardic minion. So that's it. I crossed over. Now I'm gonna play this. Hang on now. Go.
You ain't the first racist, and you damn sure ain't the last, bro.
Hell no.
Play a new movie, bro. Play a new movie.
Play no
right,
movie,
guys.
bro.
And listen to this
I ain't
clip.
offended.
Get some new material, bro. That's yesterday's newspaper.
Okay, I'm gonna put you to the kitchen.
Racism's totally real.
No, you just sit down, make some spaghetti and meatballs in the kitchen. You're not gonna.
Hey, what's up, Alan? Let me look at the link you posted. Alan, I'm wondering, can you hear me, Alan? If you're on mute, I can't hear you, but I'm wondering if I could read a poem to kick off your room.
Thank you for reminding me. I forgot that I was on mute. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Yes, you can.
Okay. This comes from the Tao Te Ching, which is by Lao Tzu. This is the 25th verse. There was something undefined and yet complete in itself, born before heaven and earth, silent and boundless, standing alone without change, yet pervading all without fail. It may be regarded as the mother of the world. I do not know its name. I style it Tao, and in the absence of a better word, I call it the Great. To be great is to go on. To go on is to be far. To be far is to return. Hence Tao is great, heaven is great, earth is great, king is great. Thus the king is one of the great four in the universe. Man follows the ways of the earth follows the ways of heaven. Heaven follows the ways of Tao. Tao follows its own ways.
Interesting. Does that mean you're pro-theocracy?
Oh, look, it's my friend, the trash bag. Alan, in regards to your question, am I pro theocracy? Can you explain theocracy to me, please?
Just a second, but before I do, I just want to make sure I did get it right. You would have voted against the big beautiful bill. Did I understand that last night?
Yes, I would have been. I would have voted no.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't really put a fine nub on that last night. I meant to, and I got a nightmare that I had failed to do that. Theocracy meaning a government that is run with the intent or the idea of God, that God is running the country through a king.
Yeah, definitely against that.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
I mean, that's the whole basis of our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence.
Separation of church and state, buddy.
No, well, yes, but I'm talking also about the Declaration of Independence against the king and eternal separation from kings. So no kings. However, I would say during the No Kings protest at the local park near my house, I was shocked to read the really anti-American vulgarity that children were writing on the ground with chalk, and parents were, I could tell obviously they're part of the communication chain. But if that's the programming that our children are receiving now to be, I would call it TDS. Trump, Orange Man, bad. Trump seems to be the cast off for all projection, and he is the number one man. So I'm not saying he's a king, but as the commander in chief, he has an incredible amount of power. And in when presidents are no longer president, they say, "What do you miss most?" And I heard George Bush say this. He said, "It's the power. It's the absolute power you have." So there's no higher high than being the president because it's like being the pope. You're infallible, and everything you say is part of history. So um, I don't really have a point per se. I was just, in regards to this Axios article, I'd have to put my email in to continue reading it. But to me, it's a perfect clickbait title, and I appreciate it because it's really good. It's worded quite well.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what really got me going was the idea that if there was a war, Trump, you heard the press conference, you may have heard it. If there was unfortunately I can't find the article right now, but if there was a war, Trump wouldn't have to face an election in 2028. Well, in the first place, he's not eligible. And I hope you would agree he shouldn't be made eligible for a third term.
No, of course not. He's not going to one up George Washington. But in terms of FDR, I think that situation, World War II with FDR, is a very special situation. And I do not believe Trump will have his presidency extended, nor will he run another time.
Yeah, FDR was definitely a unique situation. But it wasn't against the law. I think you and I would agree that when FDR ran, it may not have been wise, he may not have been healthy, but it wasn't against the law. And I think you would agree that we did have an election in 1952. When we were in the Korean War. We did have an election in 1964 and 68 and 72 when we were in the Vietnam War. We did have an election in 2004, 2008, and 2012 when we were in the Iraq War. So I think his claim is absolutely absurd.
We have very reliable election cycles and a lot of legal law or election law. So I have no doubt that our election cycles will basically never be interrupted until the time this country gets invaded, which could be 300 years from now. Who knows?
Yeah, or could be a little less. Well, I'm glad to find areas where we agree. I'm also glad to find areas where we don't agree. But I'm really glad that you agree that he shouldn't have a third term. I'm really glad you agree that we shouldn't have a theocracy. And I'm really, really glad you agree that you wouldn't have voted for the big beautiful bill. Those are all wonderful things to have noted. So,
Well, I'm running as a Republican and I'm wearing a Trump MAGA hat. So, explain all the contradictions, but I think that most people are more aligned on fiscal conservatism and pragmatic spending. That's the one thing everybody agrees on because that's how you live your life.
of course, except Trump doesn't reflect that. I mean, I respect that you are telling the truth about who you are, and I'm actually quite amused when I go into some of these other rooms that at the, how do I say it nicely, I don't mean to insult anybody on the app, but the intellectual level on this app or in the country in general is very scary to me. We became great because we had a great education system, and when you look at the level of absurdity that people will accept, it just makes me a little crazy.
Well, I read books, and when you read books, you get into higher levels of intelligence. And, my friend and I here, the Trash Bag, have read books together on this app. And so, as a Green Bean moderator, I just believe it's your leadership responsibility to not just have conversations, but also read from books in the way that I just read that little poem to help
Agreed.
open up your room.
Agreed. Hello, my friend. I don't know this person.
This
I'm
is
always
this is Zach.
Hello, my friend.
This is Zach. He goes by my friend
It's
the
me.
Trash
It's
Bag.
your friend, the Trash Bag.
Why have you chosen that moniker?
Well, a while ago, John told me that the Trash Bag was too self-deprecating. When I first got on this app, I was using my real name. I was just Zach Caruda. Because it says when you get on this app, it says we use our real names. So I used my real name. But then I got removed from the app a few times. I kind of developed kind of a negative reputation among some circles, and I got a lot of accounts deleted. And then for a while I was Ishmael the Gorilla, because I don't know if you've ever read Ishmael by Daniel Quinn, but that's a great book. Okay. And then I was the Trash Bag. And John said that it was too self-deprecating and that I should be something more empowering, like a, nature hero or something. So then for a while I was your friend, my friend, the nature hero.
Are you and John friends or enemies? I don't understand.
No,
I
we're
would
friends.
consider
We're
John a
friends,
friend.
yeah.
Yeah, John is my friend.
We text each other. We are in open communication. I have no enemies on this app. I'm open to all communication, and my name, my number, my address, everything about me is public. And people call me, people text me, and I reply with hopefully positive communication every time.
Interesting, because when he came in and you called him my friend the Trash Bag, obviously I didn't know this history, so it implied very, minorly, I will admit, and I'm glad I inquired about it, but it implied something that wasn't the case. Very interesting.
But I am your friend, the Trash Bag. Look at my picture.
No, I can't.
Oh, well, Alan, you see how you have a picture of your face and you're holding a sign that says no kings?
Yes.
Well, instead of a picture of my face, I have a picture of a trash bag.
Oh, okay.
He's
So
trying to be
picture,
funny, Alan.
John has a picture of his face. He's wearing a MAGA hat. He's sitting in his house. He's sitting there. He's smiling into the camera. I have a picture of a trash bag. It's just a joke. It's like a clubhouse culture. Are you new to the app, Alan?
No.
Oh, well, I don't know. It's just a stupid joke. My name is Zach.
I get it. No, it's just that the pictures, I don't get the pictures, so it's why I don't do a lot of social media.
Well, my name is Zach. It's not Trash Bag, but some people call me Trash Bag.
And where do you live, Zach?
I live in Portland, Maine.
Oh, okay. So are you contributing to the candidate's campaign?
Am I contributing to John's campaign?
That was my question, yes.
Geez, maybe I should. Yeah, I was teasing John that I was going to come to Chicago and help to collect signatures, and then he sent me I know you're looking for people, John, and I haven't got back to you yet, but I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know. I guess so far, no. I haven't made any financial contributions to John's campaign.
Well, it's so fascinating because whether I agree with John or not, I commend that citizens are trying to get involved in the act. And I think if one thing is exciting to see in this particular time, it is that ordinary citizens are trying to step up and take a part. Whether we agree or not is not as important as the fact that people are making an effort. And In one sense, Trump may make America again because it'll make America involved again.
Well, I heard this quote the other day. It said the greatest punishment for refusing the responsibility, basically, let me try to shorten it. The greatest punishment for refusing to rule is being ruled by someone inferior to yourself.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, Anson, or good afternoon, I guess I should say. I am wondering if you saw Trump today saying that if there is a war, there would not be an election in 2028, and I wonder what your reaction to that is.
I did not see it, and I've been glued to the TV for a better part of the day, watching as events unfold in the White House. And it's ridiculous to suggest that there would not be an election in 2028. And, that's insane. If he said it, then I condemn it strongly. But today, to me, is not about Trump. And that's the reason is history truly in the making? And when will we know? I see some really very important. Did anybody here listen to all of the leaders speak briefly? They're now in an enclave talking privately, but they did open it up to the press. Did you see the comments that were made around that table? And is that something we want to discuss, or would you rather just focus on Trump and some insane comment implying that we're not going to hold an election in the United States? It's whichever way you want to go.
No, I'm thrilled that you agree that comment is delulu. And I have no need to stick on it. Unfortunately, I was tied up this morning in some other meetings, so I didn't see what Macron said and so forth. Inform us.
Well, first of all, the captain is delusional. Who's the captain?
Trump.
Okay. All right. I thought somebody might be taking a shot at me.
No, absolutely not.
I'm laughing. I'm not that important.
Well, you are. I think you are.
One of the things that was said, and I think it was the Prime Minister or President of Finland, who is does he have Trump's ear? But anyway, somebody said that we today, in the last 2 weeks, we, the West, have made more progress in ending this war than we have in the last 3.5 years. And I agree with that. We are a hell of a lot closer today than we were a month ago, or 6 months ago, or 2 years ago, to finding a way to bring the end to this war. And today, the focus is not a ceasefire, which anybody can break and might or might not hold for a day, a week, a month, or a couple of years, but ending the war with a peace treaty that could arguably be ratified by the Senate in the United States and equivalent ratification across Europe. Are we, in fact, approaching we are approaching that possibility. Now, nobody knows what Putin is going to do, but I've been watching the coverage. Fox has an absolutely superb, detailed map of what's going on in eastern Ukraine. And I have more clarity now in looking at that map and listening to the guy General Keane, who I have a lot of respect for. And I know he's Fox and all that. but I respect King. But I was flipping back and forth, and I was watching CNN, and their lead guy was John Bolton, who of course hates Trump. So there was a tone that was different between those two, and there was an emphasis on a different point of emphasis made by Bolton slant CNN and Fox with General King, as well as Mike Pompeo, who I believe is one of the better secretaries of state that we have had for a considerable amount of time. But that's beside the point. But I really respect and admire Mike Pompeo, and I think he has been a wise and effective part of our government. He, well, I'm waiting to see, I'm toying with. I don't know whether we're going to open the rational discussion room or not today, but I really am seeking a dialogue as to whether or not, in fact, history is in the making. When will we know? And what is a rational possibility of what it will look like if peace treaties are signed and the war is brought to a true end with robust, boots on the ground security guarantees from Europe and even the United States. And so I'm waiting with bated breath. I don't mean to rob your room or distract you from what you want to talk about.
No.
But this is my hope, my anticipation, and it has nothing to do with whether I like Trump or not, or whether he's a bombastic son of a bitch and an idiot for calling for no election in 2000. I mean, all that is just crazy. I'm instead focusing on what I just really, I guarantee you, last Friday when we were all when I was sitting around waiting for the press conference following the summit with Putin, and I told my companion as we were waiting, I said, we may see history in the making with this press conference. And after that press conference was over, I was so disgusted. I was outraged. It was a travesty. And there should never have been a press conference. Putin should never have been given the stage to give the speech that he gave standing by the President of the United States on American soil.
Thank you.
If he wanted to give a press conference, he should have gone back to Russia and given his own goddamn speech.
Thank you.
And that was a travesty. But now, look where we've gone. Just look at Zelensky and how the tone of, you had to watch it for yourself, and I can't adequately describe it all. But my hopes are that history is in the making, and I'm waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen in the next fairly short period of time. We could have a peace treaty in a matter of weeks, not months.
Yes, and
On the other hand, we could have a continuation of the war with not the end in sight.
I want to give other people a chance to ask you some questions because you're more knowledgeable about this than most people. I have two questions for you, and then I want to let other people in here ask you questions. My question is, why would the U.S. Congress be involved in ratifying a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine? That's my first question.
Because there would be a security agreement that would require long-term U.S. commitment to the security of Ukraine. And the only way to make that stick so that it's not subjected to, from one president to the next, is with some form of treaty, whether it's a multilateral. It's not. It's not a NATO treaty. Anyway, it's not a NATO commitment because I don't think Putin will stand for a NATO admitting Ukraine to NATO, or even giving, well, maybe give Ukraine, and this has been a topic of discussion on the news, an Article 5 like security agreement, but not a NATO agreement. And I don't
That's a good
understand the
answer.
difference between that. Okay?
That's a good answer. I just want a high level. I don't need to get into the weeds. I think often these discussions break when we get into the weeds. My second question, and then I'm going to ask Steve. Steve's going to get the next shot at asking you a question. Do you think it's a fair agreement if the children that were stolen from Ukraine are not returned to Ukraine?
No, and that was discussed pointedly by the European Commissioner, the woman. There are two women in the room, the Italian Prime Minister and I don't remember their names, but she brought that up, and Zelensky brought it up as they made their brief remarks going around the table. And that should be part of the treaty that Russia and Ukraine would sign. And returning those children, as well as returning all the POWs and all that as well, the normal kind of prisoner exchange when peace erupts. But returning the children is an item on Zelensky's agenda, and it's important and will be discussed, but the details will have to wait.
As a prisoner. But the good news here that I find very exciting is you agree that those children should be returned.
Of
and
course.
Okay, that's very good.
Now, how do you know you're going to get absolutely 100% of them? And are we going to see some crying Ukrainian mother because her child was not yet returned, but 95% of them was? I mean, you know, the way we can overblow.
I understand that.
Right.
Yeah, I think
on principle, absolutely, the children must be returned.
I'm really interested in getting answers in principle, and I think we break things often over very small points. So thank you. Steve, you get the next shot at answering a question if you have one.
Yeah, Anson, my question would be is, with all the European leaders that was there, and with Trump there, and them supposing, I didn't see the thing, but are you saying there's being exerting their will on Trump? And if they are, and they're being adamant about what they will or won't accept, and push comes to shove, and the United States doesn't want to be part of any security guarantees, does the Europeans have the muster, or do they have the gas in the tank to send someone in there and actually do it without us? Basically, what I'm saying is this. Are the Europeans just blowing smoke, and if they blow the smoke too hard, will Putin just call their bluff on it?
No. The Europeans are not blowing smoke. And I can give you a little bit more detail, again, General Keene's perspective on this. And it was a remarkable perspective. I think it's correct, and it reflects a huge leap forward over the last 10 years, from where we were 10 years ago to where we are today, in terms of the European willingness to accept their burden in the protection of Europe and the protection of Ukraine, and not just sit back and expect the United States to carry the brunt of any of such things. There is a remarkable move forward by Europe to accept a tremendous increase economically and militarily.
Let me ask you this, though, Anson. I understand that they've committed to increase spending on military, and with your time in the military, when you ramp up readiness, you can't do that overnight.
Oh, for sure.
And like right now, the last estimates I had on Great Britain they had a 70,000 man standing army. The German army was in complete disarray. Now, that's not to say they're not trying to correct it, but my point is, if you have become so weak in your ability to respond militarily, and you haven't ramped up and you haven't got to where you have capabilities to really put bite behind your bark, does your bark mean much?
I can answer that question, but it's to be really yes, I see a path forward given the current state of military preparedness on the part of Europe. Do I see a path forward to improve that readiness over time and resulting in true, meaningful European deterrence, vice just American deterrence against Russian aggression? Yes, I do see a path forward. Given the reality of the world today, Europe has to do that, or there's going to be earth-shattering consequences. They have to do it. They recognize it. It's not going to happen overnight, but if they're starting to move in the right direction, it's like turning an aircraft carrier. It is hard and takes a hell of a lot of power and takes a long time to change the course of a huge aircraft carrier as opposed to a speedboat. So you're not going to see it overnight. But let me give you an example. And I learned this from General King today. Right now, the United States has 40,000 troops, 5 brigades. That's about 8,000 troops per brigade in Europe. Okay? That's not a whole lot of military power. The United States could very easily and with essentially no cost move 1 or 2 of those brigades into Ukraine. Now, whether Americans agree to that or not, but you don't have to move divisions. You don't have to, you don't have to move multiple air wings. You have to move tripwires that are European troops that, if attacked by Russia, would invoke NATO response because of the attack on Europe, not because of the attack on Ukraine. So, yes, there is a path forward. And I would also point out, Steve, that we are in, I read recently, given the drawdown in the munitions that we have been using to supply both Israel and Ukraine over the last several years. You know how long it will take to rebuild those stockpiles given the current state of our military-industrial complex, just to get back to where we were in February of 2022? The answer is 7 years. That is not good. Now look at that depletion of our own stockpile. Forget Ukraine, forget Gaza. Given the state of our current stockpile, what if China sent carrier battle groups to surround Taiwan today? We don't have enough bullets to shoot to supply Ukraine to effectively hold off Russia, much less of enough bullets of our own to be able to militarily stand up to China if they make a move on Taiwan in the next day, month, year, couple of years. That's scary, is it not?
And Anson, regardless of how benevolent you want to be, at some point there becomes logistical realities in what you're engaged in. And that was kind of where I was driving this point too. If you're sitting there and a guy's barking at you, and he doesn't have the logistical capabilities to enforce what he's barking, and you're negotiating with this guy, how seriously do you take him? And that's one of the conundrums I think we've gotten ourselves into here. And I think it's logistical that we're so depleted in like you said, that it's going to take us 7 years to replenish our stockpiles. Well, that's where we're at as a baseline. What about Europe? And has Europe or any of the countries in Europe, besides doing little skirmishes with small groups that are basically militias, they haven't engaged in a pure war conflict probably since World War II. And a pure conflict is something you got to think through, or it can get ugly. And I think what I see here is Putin is looking at this like, well, dude, about the only lever you got to pull on us is to crash our economy by shutting off the oil, going to China and going to India, to where you start decimating our economy. The Europeans aren't going to send enough troops in there with enough fight in them to mean anything. The United States is bled down on armaments, and you can rail against Trump all you want, but it doesn't matter who's sitting in that seat. It's like playing a game of poker. You either got the cards to play the game or you don't. And if you don't have the cards and another guy calls your bluff, then what?
Anson, do you want to respond to that at all?
Oh, yeah, sure. I've been engaged with my classmates over the weekend, and we just had a change of command at the Naval Academy. There was a lot of political turmoil. A woman was the first superintendent, and she got moved out early. She wasn't fired. She was actually promoted to a higher level job in Washington. But they brought in a Marine, and I watched the change of command ceremony, and oh my God. But one of the comments that I alluded to, and I then revised it as an allusion, I made an assertion that today's geopolitical world, and compounded by the decline of the United States economically and militarily, today's world is far more dangerous, unsettled, and we are closer to nuclear war today than since 1962. And the entire time that I served on a nuclear submarines during the Cold War, we are closer to nuclear war today than any time since 1962. And because of the unsettled uncertainty compounded by the inevitable long-term, not because of Trump, not because of Democrats, not just because of Republicans, but the economic, military, even the social fabric decline in the United States has put the world in a far more tenuous, uncertain, and dangerous situation than I've ever seen in my lifetime, except that I was born in 1942, so of course World War II was still going on. But that's where we are, in my opinion, and God help us, but we got to do something about it. But that's where I think we are, and that's pessimistic, it's depressing, but it's the best I can come up with based upon my reading of history and active duty involvement and all that kind of stuff. And I could.
Well, Anson, I don't think it's that depressing. Let me restate what I think you said, because I think it's always useful to make this iterative and to make sure we've heard everything that is said. I think you have said, and I completely agree with you, and I was alive during this time as well, although younger than you, that 1962 was the most dangerous time in the world after the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Are we on the same page so far?
Sure.
Okay. And you feel like the world, because of the changes in the world order, and perhaps China and the deterioration of economic stability in the world, that it is more dangerous than it's been since 1962. Did I hear you right?
Absolutely. Exactly.
Good. And that Europe is more capable of defending itself than, or helping Ukraine to defend itself than it has been since World War II. Did I hear you right on that?
Yes. Europe has the wherewithal. I don't know if they have the political will and capability of doing it. But the European Union, I think, is the single, which is the bigger economy, the European Union, the U.S., or China? But they're all pretty damn close. And the European Union today spends 17% of their GDP or budget or something
GNP.
on defense, and 40% on their social fabric, social engineering, safety nets.
Yeah.
Okay? Europe politically is capable of changing that. Is capable. They have the economy. They have the education. They have the enlightened population. They have Europe that can pull themselves up and fix that kind of imbalance. Whether they have, just like the United States has done up until the last 25 or 30 years, maybe. I mean, after all, we had a balanced budget and around $1 trillion in debt 24 years ago, did we not?
Yes.
Look at us today. That's not just GOP, that's not just Democrats, that certainly isn't just Trump or just Biden or just Obama. It's the American fabric that is on the downhill slope. Europe can help fix that by contributing a far greater share of their ability to stabilize the world order.
Steve, I don't think that's pessimistic. Do you?
No, but I understand what Anson's saying, but I think right now, and my information could be stale, so this may cloud my perspective if my information's stale. And I understand they've implied they're going to start ramping up their military. But this slice of time that we're dealing with right now, not 5 years down the road when you got all the tanks you want, and you got all the missiles you want, and you got all the artillery you want now, and you start saying these kind of things to a guy that's been engaged in a bloody conflict and is sitting on a ton of nuclear weapons, and you start talking tough guy when you haven't got, it'd be like a boxer taking on another boxer that's been fighting every 6 months. He's ready to go. He's been fighting. He's tuned. He's ready. And your boxer's sitting there. He's been sitting on his butt, hasn't been training, hasn't been getting in shape. And then he says, "I'm going to get in shape." And a week after he starts training, he says, "I'm ready to take that guy on." Well, anyone that's ever trained athletes know that's illogical. And that's kind of how I view Europe right now.
Yep,
I think they're
this is really important, Alan, Steve, and everybody else. I think it's important.
Yes.
We cannot if the GDP drops 1% today in America, the roof blows off. But it may jump back up 3% tomorrow. I'm not looking at the immediate short-term give and take back and forth, even specifically the war in Ukraine. I'm trying to look at this thing over longer term and what the trends have been, how those trends, I mentioned that I deeply feel that the fabric of America has declined dramatically, at least in the last 25 years. And we have to be able to do something about that. And it's not going to be just a big, beautiful bill, Democratic response to has to be viewed over a much longer period of time. And that's why I think history might be in the making, just maybe, because it is going to demonstrate, among other things, a European willingness with boots on the ground and signatures on treaties to accept a far greater burden for global stability rather than they're paying attention to their own social fabric to the exclusion of their responsibilities in terms of global stability. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But let me ask you this, Anson. I understand where you're going with that point, but to the point I was making about this narrow slice of time and negotiations that's transpiring inside that narrow slice of time, and the available cards that you have to play at this poker table, which is the negotiations. And this is what upsets me so bad, that people will start saying, well, he just give up, or they just folded, or whatever. Things aren't like that. If you know what your position is, and you know what the other guy's position is, there's a limited number of plays that you have available to you. It's not just like, you're not just going to walk in and tell Putin, well, you're just going to stop shooting today. That ain't going to happen like that. There has to be some kind of leverage involved, and everybody involved in this is going to have to bring some kind of leverage to persuade him. That's my point.
Oh, absolutely. And there is leverage that can be used against Putin. He's a lot of bluster. He's a tough guy. Yada. But Russia's, I don't know exactly what the state of their economy is. I certainly don't know what the status of their ammunition supplies, their ability to continue to recruit criminals and man the battle line. I thought I shared the hope last Friday that Putin would be more willing than he was, because he truly was tired of war, and in fact his country steam and the Russian engine was running dry. That was not the result, and Putin stood his ground. And there's going to be a conversation, a phone call after the meeting today in the White House. Trump said he was going to call Putin again, and he was going to push for a trilateral agreement, trilateral meeting sometime really soon. I don't know whether that's going to happen or not, but there is leverage to be used against Russia, but it has to be used with tremendous unity and resolve, not just words, not just bullshit around the conference table, but there has to be real demonstration of resolve from Europe and the United States to stand united to repair the fabric of both entities, the European Union and America, to be able to stand much taller than we have in the last 25 years in order to achieve effective, meaningful, and lasting deterrence against not only Russia, but China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia combined. That's the historic. I'm hoping to see a little bend in the trend of history, to see perhaps an uptick, what has been a negative slope, an uptick in the right direction. And I think maybe we can get an indication of that sometime pretty quickly. I know that's what Trump is trying to do. He doesn't say it. When he tries to say it, he gets bombarded. But I know that that's what
ways that build up and look like. The first piece of that is that Europe united as the political will to stand with Ukraine, not Russia, right?
Exactly.
And
We
Steve has
not only united, but united in strength. If the Brits have 70,000 troops, that's divide that by that's 10 brigades maybe. That means Britain puts a brigade or two on the ground in Ukraine on the line of battle as a tripwire in case Russia violates either a ceasefire or more likely a peace agreement.
Yes, as I understand it, Steve has two very different concerns about Europe. You have been competent and thorough, I think, in addressing one of those two concerns if you can, which is their military readiness. And I think what you've said is they are perhaps more militarily ready than we may think, and more militarily ready than they've been since World War II. The piece you cannot address, of course, and no one in their right mind would expect you to, is the political will of the Europeans. Do I understand?
Yes, I'm distracted a bit because I've got a real bone to pick with somebody in your audience. So I'm paying attention to what she's saying in the chat. But yes, I think I agree with what you just said, Alan.
Okay.
Alan, could I just mention one other thing? You know, you do an accounting on your inventory.
So everybody, it's
Like-
July.
From 2 years ago versus today. How many more planes do the Germans have? How many more artillery pieces do the Germans actually have in inventory? These are the things that you would have to put that are going to be the teeth in the work. The same with Great Britain. Have they increased their Air Force capability? Have they increased their naval? These are all things that are all components of war. And if you're going to threaten someone with a tripwire, like Anson was talking about, the tripwire indicates one thing. You kick that tripwire, and now you're going to have to deal with consequences. The question becomes, and I agree, there's a lot of political will involved in this, but actual numbers of planes, troops that are ready to fight, missiles that are ready to launch. What's the inventory that's been available today versus 2 years or 5 years ago that Europe actually has capabilities to put on the field and engage? Like I said, I can have a boxer and say this guy has great potential, but he's only been trained a week. Okay, he's been trained 2 weeks. Does that mean the guy's ready to fight? And that's what you got to look at with these countries. Political will is important because that political will turns into actual tools to engage with. But until you see these inventories significantly shift, have you really put bark in your bite?
Steve, can you agree with me that the political will that the Ukrainians have shown has been absolutely extraordinary? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. But here again, Alan, their political will would have been insufficient without the armaments that was supplied to them by people that actually was able to ramp them up in a way where they could resist. Like our.
Alan, you know what's interesting? I find I agree with you.
Give me just a second. I want to hear what Jane has to say. Jane, you have something to say.
Thank you, Alan. I'm okay. Go ahead, Scott. Anson has the phone to pick with me.
Well, I'd like to get that resolved. Let's get that resolved.
Well, it's up to you. Sure. Thank you.
No, let's get it resolved. I don't know what the phone is because I just can't deal with the chat. What is this issue?
No clue. Anson, go ahead.
Read the comment that your parting shot at me, the comment that you put in Alan's room yesterday. Anson is an old fart trying to conduct an irrational somebody wrote you.
Somebody wrote
your name. And I quoted. I could not believe that someone that I.
Oh, I
Never
know.
mind. Somebody named Jane wrote that, and it was so far out of line with what I am trying to do and how I'm trying to express myself that I blocked you, and I don't know how you got in here and how you got on the stage, so I don't know how to block people, but you owe me.
Let me start with that.
You owe me.
You don't get to block people, unless you're the moderator. You can block people unless you're the moderator.
You won't get into the irrational discussion.
That's okay.
And it's okay. I don't want you.
But Anthony,
we're gonna break.
I read the comment. I know the person who wrote it very, very well. And I laughed at it. That I will own. So, if that's a crime worthy of blocking, I think there's a lot worse things that have gone on. I feel like here, and we don't have to litigate whatever amount of time people spend in those spaces. But I'm shocked at the level of apathy that many elected ballots stand behind the guy who told me the other day, Brad, speaking to Brad out, loves to kiss your ass. When you're not around, he's one of the most horrid men I've ever encountered in my life. So I don't really care, Anthony, at this point. I used to really try with you in Gary's room. I know you don't go there anymore, but at this point, you've misunderstood who wrote that comment, and I don't care to name them, though I do know who did it. And two, I did laugh at it.
Okay, so Jane did laugh at it, Anson. She didn't write it. I really respect both of your minds, and I do think that it is more difficult for women in this forum, and I am eager to engage them. On the other hand, that is not meant as any form of disrespect to you, and I do hope that you will accept her statement that she didn't write it.
I'll accept the fact that she didn't write it, and I will certainly expect that a modest degree of rationality and acceptance of differing points of view without all the venom that flows around here. I am doing my best.
I was told by Brad S. to get a rope and hang myself, Anson. Is that venomous to you?
I am not going
Just curious what your point of view is.
I am not going to defend Brad in any way, shape, or form.
Glad to hear that.
He cut loose on somebody in my room last week, and it was after I left. The room still ran for another 15 minutes, and I couldn't believe the outrage in that room. And it just, I'm not even sure I'm gonna reopen the room again. Because if it devolves to that kind of crap, then it is anti-ethical to everything I'm trying to do on Clubhouse.
Okay, I respect both of you, and I apologize, Anson, on behalf of the room for allowing that comment to stay in the chat. I can only mention so much, and Curiosity does the best she can for it. There was a lot going on yesterday. I think in general it was a good room, and I think as we go through what is undoubtedly a very difficult time in coming to common ground, I am extremely eager to find common ground, and I'm grateful to both of you for engaging in this conversation. I will try to protect both of you verbally. I can only do what I can do in the chat. Is that fair to both of you?
I don't know how I'll see if I can unblock Jane, but I want to have rational conversations without all the clubhouse TDS MAGA bullshit. We've got to break this goddamn log, Jan, and I am committed to giving it my best shot.
And you're doing a good job.
And it's pissing me off that I'm unable to do it.
Well, you're doing a good job, Anson. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do, and I've been working at it as well. And getting along with people is difficult. As I said to one of our people on the stage yesterday, and he knows who he is, we were told by the Apostle Paul to bear with one another, and that is hard work. And I am eager to help everybody do that.
Thank you for allowing me to unload here a little bit with Jane, and thank you, Jane, for at least acknowledging that I'm trying to move in the right direction, and let's get back on topic and see if we can figure out whether is this a history-making event today, starting last Friday, going on. Is it a history-making event? When will we know, and what will it look like? And what will that mean for the world writ large in the coming years, not days, weeks, or months? That's what I'm trying to figure out now.
Thank you. Now, Ken, you have been, and I very much appreciate how quiet you've been and how you participated in the discussion. You are hoping to serve in Congress. And I would be curious to know what questions you might have for Anson based on the last 15 minutes of discussion.
Hey, sorry, I had to.
Is he on a lunch break?
No, my.
You're working for the people here, buddy. Come on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Anson, yeah, I appreciate everything you've said and Steve said, and I learned a lot listening to you guys. I feel like, Alan put together a great room, and, I say peace now, and, but, I think we're all doing an independent analysis of this huge geopolitical paradigm and, paradox in many ways. But my question to Anson would be, maybe if you could share a story in the Navy of a conflict, on the submarine, and how, as the leader, you helped resolve the issue, or how the issue didn't resolve, or how it played out, or some type of anecdote or some type of personal experience about where you've seen conflict resolution create, a great opportunity, or could be a bad story, whatever, any kind of memory you have about some high pressure conflict or something. And then the second part of that question would be is, from a fiscal perspective, at $1 trillion a year for the NDAA, what would your budgetary recommendations be for our national defense? Thanks, Anson.
Do you guys really want me to tell a sea story?
We do. We actually do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. You know the difference between a sea story and a fairy tale?
No.
A fairy tale starts with now once upon a time, and it ends with they all lived happily ever after. A sea story begins with now this is no shit, and it ends with and the son of a bitch got what he deserved.
Okay, we like that.
Okay. Here's a short story, and it's bragging a little bit, but it's a short story of successful leadership. I was the commanding officer of a nuclear submarine, an attack submarine. I trained my crew very hard. I ran drills all the time. I set very high standards, and I was a tough skipper. I wasn't a tyrant, but I was tough. We were preparing to go on a special operation, which meant that we were going forward into the Arctic and spying on Russia, specifically Russian submarines. We proceeded to do so. I tangled with a Russian submarine. We went tooth and nail with each other for several days. And I then, in order to disengage, I proceeded to take my ship under the ice. Only 2 people on my ship had ever been under the Arctic ice. And I'm talking about 10 to 40 feet of ice over your head. So if you have a casualty on board, you can't surface. When I went under the Arctic ice, I knew he would not go with me. We had been under the ice for about a day. Fire in the auxiliary machinery room. A real fire in a real switchboard with 40 feet of ice over our head. That fire was put out and we returned to a normal full power lineup and proceeded on our mission. It took about 30 minutes. The whole crew was in breathing apparatus, etc., etc. That crew responded with an absolute level of expertise, technical competence, bravery, even heroism. And when it was all over, I went to my stateroom and I cried because I couldn't have put the fire out. I couldn't have given any orders to do much of anything. The crew had to respond to that. And I went to my stateroom and I prayed to God with thanks for allowing me to have such a marvelous group of men under my command. And I pinned as many medals on them as I possibly could when we returned to port.
Anson, we thank you. That was an incredible, incredible way. You know, this is what we're trying to do, and we break it when we don't recognize the greatness that each of us has. I love the question, candidate. I love the answer, Anson. It is so fucking good that I'm going to close the room right here, but we're going to do more of these pop-up rooms. I don't want to break this mood. Thank you all.
Air cover.
Me. Why the fuck would anybody drop Drake into this bullshit? Or what?
I mean, no, like because she said like, hey, you